How do you make a really great presentation? Today, I'm going to show you how I actually design a really phenomenal presentation. Over the past 15 years, I've presented to many hundreds of thousands of people. And even last week, I taught 150 leaders at IKEA this exact method that I'm going to teach you today for free. And I'm going to show you rather than tell you. And Steven, who's behind the camera, doesn't know what's happening right now. But we're going to actually design a mock presentation for a group. So can you pick, Steven, and shout out like a niche of people that you feel like is just a very niche group of professionals in some way?
Jet ski insurance professionals.
Jet ski insurance professionals. Okay, so this is our aim. We're going to design a 60-minute presentation to jet ski insurance professionals in the way that I use to design any gathering. I call it the contribution method. We're going to do the quick and dirty version. I'm going to teach you how to prep a 60-minute presentation that jet ski insurance professionals will love using only one prop. And you could use no props as well, but for fun, I'm going to use this deck of question cards that also have words on one side as well, because involving something tangible makes things interesting, especially if you're a jet ski insurance professional. You're used to like physical engagement, okay? Here's how I design any gathering. It doesn't matter if it's for an arena of 6,000 people or an all-day program for 100 executives at a Fortune 500. It doesn't matter. I get a blank piece of paper and I write, get ready, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a blank piece of paper. And what these 5 things are 5 locations. So what these 5 things map to is the timeline of your gathering. So it doesn't matter if you don't want to think about jet ski professionals, think about your thing that you're presenting and designing. No doubt it has a start time and an end time. And so what you have latitude over of how to make a really great presentation is from the few minutes before somebody even walks in to the time you're done. This is what you have to work with. So these 5 ingredients map to this timeline. And so from ingredient number 1 here, ingredient number 2 happens really quick, takes less than 60 seconds, but if you don't do it, it will completely shoot the rest of your presentation in the foot. Ingredient 3 is so often missed, and it has a profound difference in how people actually remember and retain and relate to everything you're gonna say after that. And then ingredient number 4 is your content. It's the stuff that you actually want to get to people's heads, but we're going to be really deliberate about designing that content for contribution as opposed to a really boring death by PowerPoint slog. And then the 5th one, usually people forget and end things leaving in a rush with high stress. So going back here, and again, we are not cutting this video. We're just going like off the top of the cuff. A friend of mine, Mark Collard, would call an unofficial start. So it's like the few minutes before your gathering begins, you have people walking in. Even though you think your presentation hasn't started, it has. And so my invite is consider this idea that Mark would call an unofficial start. So this is any strategy that you're gonna use to promote early engagement and interaction that amplifies the productivity of what you're up to. And so if you're presenting to jet ski professionals and you want it to be really useful, an unofficial start that I might do is I take this deck of cards out, a bunch of words on one side, and you can get, I'm not trying to sell you card decks, you can get well actually I do sell card decks, but you can get a free printable version of this deck in the description somewhere as well. So the cards all have visually illustrated words on them, okay? So I'm gonna have these as the jet ski insurance professionals are walking into a room. I'm gonna have them, my prompt is gonna be, choose a word that would make the next month of your life a bit easier. So my outline as I'm making a great presentation is literally I'm gonna write, choose a word. And as people are coming in, I'm saying, instead of me standing nervously thinking about myself and what I'm gonna present, I'm saying, hey, welcome, grab a word off the table that would make the next month of your life a bit easier, and sit down next to somebody and just feel free to share the word. So already, by the time my presentation starts, there's already this buzz, there's this sense of like, okay, I'm gonna actually be engaged here. This is not a sleeper PowerPoint presentation. And then this is happening if your thing starts at 9 a.m. This is happening like 8:57 to 9:02 to extend understanding for people who show up a minute or two late. And then second ingredient is this idea of a context hook. The idea is that when you have, let's say, this many people walk into a meeting, if you don't invite the group into one clear shared experience and unite them around one clear shared intention, then you're going to have 30 different meetings going in different directions because everybody wants something different. And so the context hook is anything you say or do that invites people into that moment. So for me, as a context hook, I'm going to say, hey, you all chose a word as you walked into the room. And again, I'm making this up on the fly as we go while I'm teaching you this method. I've designed an experience for you today, not a one-way presentation where you have to sit through. I've designed an experience for you today that I think you're going to get a whole heap of value out of. To make sure you get even more value out of it, here's what I want you to do. You ready? Take the word that's in your hand. Imagine that word as a pair of glasses. So if you chose resilience or anticipation or humility, that's your lens. So for the hour that we have together, I want you to listen for, if you chose the word optimism, I want you to listen for all the ways that optimism shows up in this presentation. So in essence, what's happening is if there's 30 people in the room, you're giving 30 personalized presentations, which is really a whole lot more engaging than counting on everybody loving what you put on your slides 5 days ago. The third ingredient, and in 60 minutes, if you've got a lot of content to get through, a lot of people will say, oh, I don't have time for this. And I would argue you do not have time to skip ingredient number 3, which is this idea of connection before, in all caps, content. I don't want people just connecting and relating to me because then all the heavy lifting is me. If I'm the only one presenting, then I've forced everybody into the role of either critic or consumer. But as soon as I invite them to connect with each other and have a quick conversation, I've invited them to step into the role or the land of contribution. And now they're not judging what you're saying as the presenter. They're having an experience and making a connection that will last. Now, ideally, that connection before content, the most basic way is, if they've just chosen a word, I'm going to have jet ski professionals say, turn your word over. There's a question on the other side. Get into groups of 3 with people you know least, and just answer the question on the back. Each question on the back of that word is kind of a laser pointer at the particular word that they chose from a different angle. And so you have everybody in discussions about a kind of topic that they volunteered and said would make their life easier. If you actually give up 4 minutes of your mic time in a presentation, 4 or 5 minutes for people to connect with each other, what will shift is they'll assume, wow, she actually cares about what I think. Here's the thing, as you shift to ingredient number 4, which is content, ideally just designed for contribution, not for just passive consumption. When you shift to that place, if you have given up 4 minutes of your time and allowed people to connect with each other, what happens is relatedness enters the room. People do not care about what you're going to say unless you care about them. But in a presentation of 1,000 people, you can't actually individually care about every single person. But when you invite them to connect with each other, it builds this culture of relatedness that allows for whatever you're going to share and present with them. Now, let's say to a bunch of jet ski insurance professionals, you have some very technical safety policies to present with them. You have a PowerPoint slide with 1,000 words on it. You can present that in one of 2 ways. You can either stand up and try to be as entertaining and engaging as possible, and you can use your hands, and that's all the heavy lifting on you. And people are just like gladiator judging, like I like this person, I don't like this person. Much more effective way that is way less of a lift on you is, watch, ready? Hey everybody. At the beginning of today, you chose a word. In a minute, I'm going to put up a PowerPoint slide, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds to read everything on it. And at the end of that, I'm going to ask you to turn to somebody or popcorn out. What is the one thing on this slide that might actually make your life a little bit easier? And what's the one thing on this slide that might actually make your life a bit more annoyingly hard? Ready? Go. All I've done, you can mess with those prompts, all I've done is taken that content and handed it back to the audience and said, here, you can read, do something awesome with this. And so they're passing it through their gray matter rather than relying on you to be like the song and dance at the front of the room, which leaves most presenters with a major vulnerability hangover at the end of the session. Because you're left wondering, I gave it my all, I'm not sure if people were actually with me though. Did they get it? Did they like it? Did they not? And no one's gonna walk up to your face and say, that was really terrible. And so you're always your own harshest critic, left wondering. But as soon as you turn this content into an experience, that can't happen. Wow, speaking of slides, I haven't used slides in the last 10 years, so I forgot to move my slides printed out on paper. So context hook, connection before content, you can pause there if you want, and content designed for contribution. The last ingredient that if you skip this one, everything you've done up to this point may fall flat and become forgettable. And that is the closing. You're going to end in a way that leaves everybody wanting to come back. Okay, that face I just made was, dang it, there's something in my notes that I forgot to present, I didn't share with you in this video, and it was really awesome. And this is, most presenters have this dynamic of like, I have too much to share, I didn't get it all in, and they get all this nervousness built up. That is the curse of knowledge. Your audience doesn't know what you didn't share with them. They just know, how do I feel leaving this room? Do I feel like I was better for being here? Or do I feel like I just wasted 60 minutes of my life? If you've got logistics to end with, logistics should never be the closing. Ending with scheduling the next meeting or never should be the end of the presentations. Logistics are always the second to last thing that you wrap with. For example, right, before I share a killer closing for these jet ski professionals, this was like a really quick and dirty, designing a 60-minute presentation for a random group off the cuff with no props or prep. Obviously, if I was actually presenting to them, I would spend a little bit more time and attention. If you want to do that, there's a link below, a free guide to this whole method that I'm kind of introducing you to here. It's called the contribution method. And I put together a really robust free field guide in how to cut your prep in half and double your impact in any presentation, workshop, or gathering that you're hosting. Totally worth your time and read, goes much deeper into all this stuff. And now to this killer closing that I promised. Using this one prop as my closing exercise for the jet ski professionals, I think the way that I'm gonna close with them is gonna be inviting them to look at their word. I'm gonna give them 60 seconds of silence to think about what is one thing that struck them from the last hour related to the word they chose at the very beginning. I'm gonna give everybody a minute to think about that. And then in the large group, no matter how many people are in the room, I'm gonna popcorn out 3 to 5 responses. And a friend and mentor of mine, Peter Block, would say, once you've heard from 3 to 5 people, you've heard from the whole room. So I'm popcorn out 3 to 5 quick responses. And then I'm gonna simply say, thank you so much for bringing all of yourself to this. It made it so much more interesting. Now let's go ride jet skis.